A very pleasant good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good day to all of those who are watching us and listening to our program. This is a greeting coming from a time when there is so much to talk about, and it is sometimes best to be quiet or silent because silence has many words, and that is usually the language of a time when, as they say, there is a lot of confusion. I posted something earlier in my Facebook account which says that prior to writing down the notes for this program, I was reading Pablo Neruda, my favorite, next to Rainer Maria Rilke. And I came across one of his love poems, and it began with the line, "Today I can write the saddest lines." So I used that as the entrada to the program that we have this afternoon, which is about our president. And I have that premise as speaking from a sad horizon, because for the past 5 to 6 years, as a matter of fact, prior to the election of Ferdinand Romualdez Marcos Jr. to the presidency, we had a program entitled Rita Gadi Hour. And it is also once a week and also for an hour. And for the 6 years prior to the election of the Junior Marcos, we spoke of three main issues against the father. And that was, or still is, if you would consider it still ongoing, the unexplained wealth, martial law, the human rights violations. So we delved in that in detail, also joined in by many of the aspects of his administration, together with the activities and programs also of his First Lady, our First Lady, Imelda Romualdez Marcos. So when I say that this afternoon begins with that horizon of the saddest lines, because what I am about to describe and to talk about is like I should have done this maybe even 2, 3 years ago. But I have to do it now because there is so much from social networking, from blogs, however else you call them, from the Twitter, from Facebook, from everybody that can post anything, from Facebook. There is so much that is being said that is critical of the present administration, critical of our present president, Ferdinand Marcos Jr., and many other events that have also occurred. Just recently was also his First Lady being interviewed. And so that added to the perception of people that something is not quite right. And so that is why I say I am beginning this program with the saddest lines. But through this dissertation that I put together, as I said, I have so many notes here. I wrote them down so that we can be able to best understand, appreciate, and ultimately, whether you belong to the opposition against the Marcoses or whether you're just standing by or whether you are marginalized as far as our politics is concerned, what is important is we must never forget that the office of the president, the presidency itself, is a position of honor, and it must be respected because the president was elected through the process of suffrage. And because of that, we the people have spoken, and he is the representative of what we have said in our ballots. So that is the ultimate that we are going to arrive at, regardless of your political inclinations, maybe, because that is very important. And I say that this is with no degree, with no little amount of sadness, because we do not really have to talk about it this way, but we just have to in order to put in proper perspective exactly who or what the presidency is insofar as a Marcos Jr. is concerned. Okay, so I mentioned also before this program started, not I mentioned, but I was giving the premise that I have received a number of messages, not a number, but a lot of messages, a lot of comments, a lot of notes, and some have even done verbal calls to me and asked what is being done, who is defending the president, who is defending the first lady. When they speak of that in such a manner and they say defend, that means that there is an attack that's going on. And that is precisely why I have been very careful in writing down the notes that I am going to read through this afternoon in order to zero in. Why is there no defense? Well, for one, the president himself has taken the cudgels for this. He has his regular meeting with the media after some pronouncements that are important for the nation. He faces the media and explains this by himself in his natural eloquence, in his gift for language, and as clearly and as emphatically as possible. But apparently, either this is not appreciated the way it should. And that is why, as I've said, I've received a number of comments saying, why is there no one to defend him? When he himself already is quite articulate in defending himself. But nonetheless, here we are. He ran under a political party, which we know as the Federal Party of the Philippines, or something with such a title. I go back 50 years ago with the first presidential election of his father under just a two-party system, the Nacionalista Party and the Liberal Party. His father was with the Liberal Party but had no place in that convention because the incumbent President Macapagal wanted to run for re-election. So Ferdinand Edralin Marcos had to transfer to the Nacionalista Party so that he would join the nomination convention for the delegates to vote as to who would be the party, who would be the presidential candidate of the Nacionalista Party. That was then. That is the period of the horizon I belong to, 1965, the first presidential election I have ever covered. But nonetheless, that went on the way the process of suffrage goes, the way our Constitution at the time has written down how the election would be proceeding, etc., and so forth. And so Ferdinand Marcos Sr. won in that election. He ran for re-election and won again. And then martial law was declared. But I have to take note of the fact that a lot of people were saying that he was dictatorial, etc., and all. But I have to mention this. We have had several elections during the 20-year period of the old man, Ferdinand Edralin Marcos. We had, for instance, the first interim Batasang Pambansa, when President Marcos, by decree, decided that we will go semi-parliamentary. That is why it was called interim Batasang Pambansa, a transition to a parliamentary legislature. So the first IBP, or interim Batasang Pambansa, elections were held in April 27, 1978. And then it was also by decree that President Marcos set up the sectoral representatives. These are the so-called marginal representation for those that are not really touched upon by the regular districts or the regular, districts that are represented by the congressmen. So with the interim Batasang Pambansa, which is parliamentary, which is no longer by district, then it was necessary to have the sectoral representatives for the sectors that were mentioned in that presidential decree that would represent the marginalized people. We still have it to this day. So that also was an election nationwide, and that was held on May 7. I'm sorry, yes, May 7, 1979. And then in 1980, we had the barangay elections. You must remember that the barangay was institutionalized as a political unit, the basic, the smallest, the fundamental, the foundation of all the political system that we have above it. And that is the barangay. The barangay was supposed to be the extended families and relations of people that lived in a specific place. Barangay was simply prior to this, that time, prior to 1980, the barangay was just a matter of an address. But because President Marcos democratized democracy in that manner by making the barangay the smallest political unit, and that is what we call grassroots democracy. I don't think any other country in the world that speaks of democracy or bandies the idea of a democratic system will ever be able to approximate what President Marcos did to institutionalize the basic political unit, which is the barangay. So we had barangay elections nationwide. They were already organized and segregated, and all the details as far as the barangay as a political unit is concerned, all of that was done already. And then we had the barangay elections in 1980. And then in 1982, we had the presidential elections again. And then we had, in 1982, we had the, what is this that I wrote? Yes, another nationwide election for, this time, no longer an interim parliament, but already the regular parliament, the Batasang Pambansa. That was in February, that was then in 1982. And then, of course, we are all aware that in February 7, 1986, we had a snap election, a national election again for the presidency. So you could see how many elections we had during the 20-year period of the senior Marcos. And then we also had political exercises, which we know as the plebiscites of the referendum. We had one in the autonomous regions in southern Philippines, regions 9 and 12. We had one that was in 1967, and then we had, 1973. We had plebiscite also whenever there is a decree or a decree which was instituted according to the provision of the Constitution already as a law that was thrown as a plebiscite to the people in 1973. So we had a plebiscite in 67, in 73, and in 1981. I wrote that down and the dates just so long as we can have the proper perspective of the period of Ferdinand Sr. But going back to the analysis that I'm trying to forward, and that is, the political party of our Marcos Jr. is the Federal Party. No longer a nationalista or a liberal or whatever parties came up, PDP, Laban, Lakas, etc., and all of that. He ran under the Federal Party of the Philippines. So that is why my perspective is all the way back to 65. Now we have a different perspective. We have a new political party on which our present president run, and that is the Federal Party of the Philippines. Again, I bring this up because when people ask who is going to defend the president in this period where there is so much critical statements rising everywhere, and you have a former president also criticizing him and several others questioning the manner of his governance, etc., where is the Federal Party on which he ran, which should be defending him? Because that is the political party that, I use that word, catapulted him to the presidency. Catapult, you know that in sports, because that is the high jump, for instance, or what do you call this? Yes, it's something that is really an outstanding kind of an athletic activity. And so you can imagine why I'm using that word, because from 36 years ago, where there was a Marcos president, it took that much time for another Marcos to be brought into power. Parang talagang ang laki ng nilundag from 1986 to 2022. Okay, so wala na yung sinasabi ko ngang normally you would have a political party in defense of their candidate. We have not heard very much from the Federal Party of the Philippines that catapulted our president into that particular office of leadership. And then, of course, we have also, and this is coming from the feedback that I am receiving, members of the cabinet. How many executive offices do we have? That is the official family of the president. Sometimes it is called the kitchen cabinet kasi yun ang pinakamalapit sa kinakain ng pang-araw-araw na mga programa at proyekto na pinag-uusapan nga, So there is not much that we can hear from the cabinet. In other words, the cabinet secretaries, the executive persons and personalities in charge of their departments should also be part of the defense of their boss. Not necessarily speaking simultaneously with him, but at least that they could be heard. So that's another office. Those are the offices that also should come to the defense of the president. This is a reaction I am giving precisely because of the feedback that I have received over the past several months or almost a year. And then, of course, people are talking about spokesperson. We have been used to the fact that in the past administrations, there was somebody who spoke for the president, elaborating on some speech or some statement, some project, some program. Today, people are asking, walang spokesperson. As I said, just the previous administration, we had, you had Attorney Roque and Attorney Panelo. Whether they agree or disagree, at least they spoke for President Duterte, former President Duterte. So yun, naghahanap ang mga tao. But then again, I said, the president is his best spokesperson. So wag na kayo maghanap. Because President Junior Marcos himself does the elaboration, the analysis, the explanation, and even the illustration of many of the things that he has been going through, and the programs that he has instituted, and the projects that he is establishing. So when he comes from a trip, before and after he comes from a trip overseas, he talks about this, explains why it has to be done. When there is an inauguration somewhere, he talks about it, why he was there, etc. And several other programs that he has instituted. Even when he was holding the office of the Department of Agriculture, he was also quite articulate as far as food security and food distribution, etc., importation of basic food products and so forth. So, wag na maghanap. Siya na mismo ang nagsasalita for himself insofar as those details in the programs of government are concerned. And then we have the, political analysts that belong to the government. We don't have, or we haven't heard from any of them. We had early on, we had national security advisors who will once in a while be part of a press conference, and they will talk about certain matters as far as security is concerned. But political analysts, in the sense that where is our political community going? Where is the state of the nation as far as our people are concerned, not as far as the president is concerned? Wala tayong ganon. So again, as I said, this is a reaction I am presenting publicly because people are asking, why are there no political analysts as far as the present political drama is concerned? So, and then what else do we have here? Well, just about several hours ago, or yesterday, or was it the other day, we had the First Lady of Junior Marcos also entering into the political arena, so to speak, or the political or the national consciousness by having a lengthy um, interview regarding, well, so many concerns, both personal to her and sometimes official, of which, of course, she is not very articulate uh, as far as that's concerned, limiting her reactions to the questions that were being asked, mostly about family, about relationships, and then, of course, that particular instance of addressing her, well, the bad shot that she spoke about as far as our vice president is concerned. So that also merited, oh, thousands of reactions. I will not go into those details, not even to analyze them, not even to mention them. But I also mentioned the fact that she has entered into the political diorama, if you would call it that, the live diorama of the national consciousness. And she is part of that group that I'm talking about, groups rather, that should be defending the president as she did, actually. So, just to summarize, we have the political federal party, that is the political party that should be defending the president. We have the members of the cabinet that should also be there out front. We have the need for spokespersons, if this is still a need, because you already have the president doing his own speaking. Then you have the political analysts, which people are also looking forward to, if there would be, because again, these are not kibitzers. These are actually scientists who will study the social process and the political um, arena in such a manner that they could be objective enough, but in defense of the office of the presidency. That is exactly what we're leading on to. Okay, now, here we are with the question. How did Marcos Jr. get into the presidency? Well, you will answer because there was a national presidential election and he garnered 31 million votes. Now we go to the history of all of this. The history of how people or a person gets into the position of power. They get there either historically. In other words, like we could say that in the case of Marcos Jr., that is history unfolding. 36 years ago, it was his father who was our president. Is there a continuity of the father's history? Well, in power, no. But in memory and in the national consciousness, yes. Because the Marcos issue was perpetuated by international and local media continuously for the past 36 years, and they were mainly negative against the Marcoses. So historically, yes, here we have a president historically put in power because and despite of his historical background, because of the fact that he is a Marcos, the son of a president 36 years ago, and because the 36 years that passed, his family was negatively attacked, but despite that, he was still elected by the people, all 31 million of about 55 million number of voters. That's more than a half if you are going to do some mathematical estimates on that. And then there is the person that is put into office by circumstance. By circumstance meaning, well, we can cite an example, may namatay, tapos because of the circumstance of a president's death, yung vice president assumes power. Or by circumstance, yung nangyari, for instance, with ex-president Estrada, because of the circumstances that evolved around his impeachment trial, then he had to be impeached and convicted, and the vice president, Gloria Macapagal Arroyo, took over the presidency by that circumstance. Okay, did Marcos Jr. enter into the presidency by circumstance? No. There were no circumstances that immediately preceded his running for the presidency, except the fact that he lost in the previous election for the vice presidency. So, is that a circumstantial episode that would bring him to the presidency? Maybe so, maybe not. Maybe because the people felt that he really should have won the vice presidency, kaya binoto na lang siya for the presidency because he deserved to be there. Or, despite the fact na natalo siya, people still believed in the name Marcos and that he could be the one that could occupy that position the way his father did. So, pwede rin. Okay, so by circumstance. Then we come to the process of the election. That is exactly what happened. Because of the process of suffrage, then we had the Marcos through a national elections elected legitimately into office as president. And then, of course, there are other events that could be that could come about. I am citing this because of the historical background of how persons are brought into the office of the leadership of a president as being a president through such examples. Okay, so we look into that because I've gone over a number of personalities that um, whose entrance into the presidency could give us some lessons. For example, there is Gamal Abdel Nasser of Egypt. And then there is Habib Bourguiba of Tunisia. And there is Nuruddin Sihanouk of Cambodia. And then in Ghana, you had Kwame Nkrumah. I am choosing these names which are not familiar with us, but which are part of a study being made or has been made regarding the rise to power in the office of leadership by personalities that I have mentioned, going against all other odds for that matter, in the same manner that Ferdinand Marcos Jr., against all odds, have also gone through, wow, 36 years of all the difficulties and all the episodes that are negatively being thrown at him and his family. And despite and because of that, was elected into the presidency by a majority of 31 million votes. So, do we have, well, so that is the public behavior that we are looking into. As they say, by your heroes, you shall be known. By your leaders, you shall be known. So, is that something that we can admit for the past other administrations? Or is it something that we can claim today, that by our leader today, we are known? So, we will look into that because in many aspects, well, I also wrote this down, that when we're searching for our identity as a people, as a nation, as a Filipino, when we search for that identity, we need a face. We need a voice. More than just somebody who can manage government or somebody who's a policeman to give us peace and order and some security. So we need that. As a people, we need a face, we need a voice. And so that is where we come into what we know as the personification of power in a person. Either symbolically, like Marcos Jr. symbolizes the Marcos legacy in a way, in many ways, or as a rallying sign, as a rallying name, symbolizing what the people are looking for. So, after the past president and the past administrations, is Ferdinand Marcos Jr. the face, the identity, the voice that people are looking for? If we go by the votes, yes, indeed he was. 31 million of those who voted for him believed that he is the voice that he is the face. Now, let us talk about his charisma. Loosely, I call it the face of the soul, cara su alma. So what is that property that he has, which connects him with that strong relationship with the people? Because that is what charisma is. It is a property that a person has. It is a quality, not a property, a quality that a person has that um, mentions that some kind of a relationship of that person with others, with an individual, with an environment, with a people. Yan. So, do you believe that our present Ferdinand Marcos Jr. has that charisma, that leadership, that kind of a power to have a relationship that bonds him with the people? And then we go back to what his father was. At some time, what his father was as a leader was a gift of grace, a certain degree of magnetism that he had as he was evolving from his political travel, from being a congressman to a senator to a Senate president and then to the presidency. That was the father of Marcos Jr. There was a gift of grace. Now we look at Ferdinand Marcos Jr. Does he have this? Does he have that gift of grace that he has gone through the past 36 years with a magnetism that made him the idol, the hero, the ideal of the people, the face, the identity that they're looking for? So here we come to the manner of his character. We know him from the way he speaks. And so we have the role of eloquence. So, does this work in such a way that his eloquence will have such a profound influence on the people for them to be able to vote him into office? Well, I mentioned the names of some of the leaders like Nasser, for instance, or Bourguiba. Wow, eloquent speakers on their own. Well, there was a drought and one of them would just say, let it rain, and it would rain, something to that effect. So here you have, again, the management of the presence and the voice of the leader that can be able to bond himself with the people and with the nation as a whole. Would you believe that President Marcos Jr. has this bonding, this relationship, well, I will use the phrase that has been used by some French political analysts, some kind of a prophetic simplicity, like somebody who walks in our midst, but some kind of a prophetic presence that we will follow, not the Pied Piper family, that you would follow because you wanted all the rats to be rid of in that particular village, but follow because he goes to a horizon that we also see. Exactly as he said in this opening address during his inauguration, your dreams are also my dreams. So there is a quest somewhere that he has told to the people, that he has spoken of, a horizon that he looks forward to from the first day that he took his office as president to a future for the next 6 years at least. So that is the horizon that we all ought to face because he said so. He personified his power with those words precisely. So, he is a product of history. He depends on the success or the failure of his programs and his projects, which we are still to determine, not yet quite concluding because it's only been 2 years, close to 2 years. As a matter of fact, for the next State of the Nation address, he will summarize all of this for us. And then, of course, with the propaganda machine that every leader has, however else it is built, however else it is done, there is this propaganda that precedes or moves about simultaneously. So that is also part of us acknowledging, realizing, and understanding what he is as a president. Now, we go, for instance, to the personality of this president, the junior. We look into the willpower that he has insofar as determining the future of the country is concerned, in the pronouncement that he has made, in the statements that he has delivered, in all of the other projects that he has set for the people. Then you would see that he has the will, precisely, that this ought to be beneficial down to the last Filipino, to every Filipino, with nobody going to be left behind. And just recently, he also stated that this is the new Philippines, ang bagong Pilipinas, where the bureaucracy itself, his handmaiden as far as governance is concerned, will move and refurbish themselves into the new Philippines, where there would be ultimate service to the people themselves. So that is part of that gift of grace that I mentioned earlier, because he has it with the votes that he has received. He has it within him to have the willpower, the character, the personality to bring us to that horizon that he himself has spoken of. Do we trust him as far as that is concerned? But the trust was already there. The trust is already a given. The trust is already the foundation of the office that he now occupies. 31 million votes. Why do I keep on repeating this? Because that is the fact, that is the reality. And whether or not you belong to any other political horizon or dimension, that is what I will be repeating, because it is important that, coming to his defense as a president, that is precisely what the people should stand for. Is this the face, the identity, the personality, the will that we want to be there for the next 4 years, now that there is this moment of critical analysis of whether he can still continue to be in office, the way some people are attacking his manner and his behavior and his personality and whatever else is hidden, which we do not see but people talk about? Is that part of all of this quagmire, if you would talk about it, that somehow he wallows in but should not? Because, as I've said, the seat of power occupies only one seat, and none of us can ever occupy it except the man that was elected into that position. So here we are with a leader that is destined to be there. I spoke of these personalities: Burgiba, Kruma, Sukarno, Benbela, Nasser, all of this. I would encourage you to read their stories, the history of their governance and their administration, so that you can best analyze the importance of the personification of power in the man who heads and leads a nation, especially a developing nation like the Philippines, or a semi-developed nation like the Philippines today. Now, what is this destiny that we speak of as far as Marcos Jr. is concerned? It's actually everything that surrounds our government. Just about the royal road, so to speak, that the people would want to also walk on. That is the belief that we have in the person that we have to follow if we have to reach the realization of our dreams, or the expectations of our hopes, or the tomorrow that we are looking forward to. So that is the destiny, a destiny that the leader believes in, that we ought to believe in likewise. And so that is how it goes, because that is the bond that he has to establish, if it has not yet been established, between him, his office, and the rest of the people, the masa, the foundations, the roots, the origins of what a nation is. Now, a leader also chosen by history. I already mentioned that. He is chosen by history. Historically, his name is history. He cannot get away from that. So he should utilize it. Use that historical perspective and historical identity to have that bonding with the people. because he is shaped by the events of the past, the events of his father, who had 20 years of that administration, which to this day we still honor, respect, and talk about. He is a product of the history of all the negativity that was thrown against his father, and despite those negative um, tirades against his family, stood up as a Marcos Jr., the junior of the Marcos that they attacked for the past 36 years. That is also an element of his roots and his destiny as a leader and as a president, junior or otherwise. And then, of course, you have what is important as far as leadership is concerned, and that is he present as the leader of the people today? So his presence, not just on stage, not when he delivers his speech, not when we see the audio video of his sitting in the cabinet, but the presence in every household of the Filipino. It is not a picture that you would see in offices. It is the image of Junior Marcos in the hearts, the minds, and the souls of the Filipino himself. Now, that is where his programs, his projects, his pronouncements are supposed to be internalized with a certain amount of confidence that he will be able to transmit to the people. Is he transmitting this effectively? Are we receiving it effectively? Do we want to receive it? Or are we outside of it? But why? Why should we be outside of it when we are the body politic, when we are the state, when we are the nation, when we are what the leader is? We are supposed to be his face, his identity, and whatever else he stands for. That is who we are supposed to be. All right, so we go now into that presumption and pray that the past 2 years have been able to establish that much of a connectivity that he has with our people. But what is the public behavior? Do we gauge public behavior simply by the texts that I receive, the messages that come to me, the calls that ring in my in my Instagram, etc., asking questions about this and that? What is our public behavior? I think that is a question likewise that will have to be determined so that we can know if the face, the identity, and the leadership that we have behaves the way we, the public, would want to behave ourselves. That is the identity that I speak of. So, when we are searching for that identity, as I said, we need the face, we need the voice, but more than that, we need to take the risks and we have to take the adventure of entering into that pathway, that roadmap that he has laid before us. Now, the question then is, do we see that roadmap? Do we understand it? Do we take it as belonging to us likewise? That when he says so, it is so. So that is a question, again, that we can answer for ourselves because the presidency and that seat of power has already set it out, not only in an inaugural speech, but in every public pronouncement that he makes, whether it is for an inauguration, whether it is for the beginning of something, whether it is a program that's being set, that is us. That is who we are supposed to be, and that is what our nation is supposed to have, and that is what we ought to be able to accomplish. With him, with us, by ourselves, together. Is it a unity thing? It is a bonding thing. Unity in diversity is a phrase that will have to be elaborated now more than ever. The diversity of our thoughts, the diversity of our social media, and all of this, still and all, there has to be, again, the acknowledgement that because of that sole one seat of power, we are or we belong to that particular identity, whether we like it or not, or whether we like it. So, well, these are the contentions that we actually go through. So there you have, as I've already mentioned, the destiny that we are looking forward to, the future that we would like to have, the horizon that we are facing. So how do we go about this at this particular stage? That is precisely why I had to go through several notes and several researches so that we can watch out for the disillusionment, the disappointment, the criticism that will have foundations only in ourselves if we know exactly what we are criticizing, what we are disillusioned about, what we do not like an emotional quotient, an intellectual quotient, a social quotient all together. That is what comprises us, the nation, the state, the people, the identity with leadership. So we watch out for this. You know, personalized power, power that is personalized, personified power, whatever else you call it. That is why it is important that we acknowledge the hierarchy of how the political system goes. We are supposed to have three branches of government. Sadly, we have the legislative, which is supposed to be a check and balance, being headed by a cousin and a very close ally of the president himself. So sometimes you begin to ask, where is the check and balance? That I think should be part of our appreciation of how we as voters should be able to determine who to put in those seats of the legislative that could check and balance the other branches of government, the judiciary and the executive. We don't have it now. Sadly, we do not. So, what do they check and balance? Each other, sila. They check and balance those that are opposing them. They check and balance what they do not agree with. But to check and balance the other branches of government, I don't think it exists as of now. So, should there be a change of leadership? That in the legislative, that depends on us. It depends on you. That is exactly why I say the identity, the face, the voice are the people, and the people will put that down in writing for the next elections. A long time ago, 3,000 years ago, when the city-states were still being organized, when democracy was very young and very new, and there were still so many discourses and dialogues and theses regarding this, Aristotle, Socrates, the Lycia, the Academe, and all of the other great thinkers, even Pythagoras with his mathematical formula, all of them were asking and discussing that which led on to the conclusion that there should be an academy of voters, an academy for voters. In other words, we, the people, must have studies that we have to undertake in order to choose correctly, rightly, and for ourselves the kind of leadership that we want to install in the offices that are supposed to check and balance other offices that belong independently from each other. Anyway, so I go round and round with this as I look over my notes, and I feel that at this particular stage, when people ask me, Rita, meron bang magdidefensa sa president and all? I think the answer is for all of you who are listening to me. All of you are there to defend the seat of power, regardless of the name that is there, but because of the name that it is there, a name that is born by history, because Marcos is history, a name that is there by destiny, because 36 years of all the negative that has been thrown at them, he was still destined to head the leadership of the nation. So there you have it. Sanang sagot niyan, kayo, sa tao. You are there to defend your face. You are there to defend the voice. You are there to defend the language that you hear when he speaks. because that is your identity. You put him there. You put yourself there. Okay, so here we are again. When you ask, well, is a president different from being a leader? Because that is the question that is arising now. Leader ba yan? Ganyang klaseng magpalakad? Oh, you have all of these invectives that are thrown at him. So many words, which I'm still looking for an English translation. I might as well bring out that word because apparently it is now, well, early on you had the word which came out, which is a Visayan word, tambaloslos, and of course, you know who that refers to. But now you have another word that comes up, and this was brought out no less by his own wife, our present First Lady, when she said, bangag. So, what is the translation for that? Bangag. Stoned? Does it refer to some medication, some drug, some antibiotic, some whatever that somebody takes or a person takes that makes him or her stone or bangag? So we come across all of this that are coming into the national consciousness, although subliminally it has been spoken about by so many who are very critical. That is why I go back again to what it means being a leader, different from being just the ordinary person in the corner store, the street smart, the policeman, the military officer, the teacher in the classroom, the civil servant, the head of the office. All of this, all of those bureaucrats, all of them all together, do they have the qualities of what it is to be a leader and to sit in that position of power as the president of the republic? You can answer that question. Because for the past 2.5 years, you have heard and you still listen to the one who sits there. That is your face. That is your identity. That is the person that connects you to the entire political drama that we are. That is our national consciousness, whether we are Filipinos or not, because we are here. We belong to this country. We live here. So that is why we get into this notes that I have written down and I'm going through, precisely because our life evokes our own character. That is where we proceed from the actions that we take, which become the habits that comprise us as a person. That is why it is good to be able to put ourselves in a situation where we choose what is good, what is moral, what is ethical, that we do not go into a field that we will have to make a choice between bad and good, or what is wrong and what is right, but that we will meet each other and ourselves in that particular field, knowing that the foundation of all our decisions should be moral and ethical. In other words, to bring spirituality back into our lives, to bring spirituality back into governance. That is precisely what was not emphasized enough when President Junior Marcos spoke of a bagong Filipinas. His father spoke of a new society. They use all of these words that are supposed to express what a higher level, not just of excellence, but a higher level of a value system should be part of our lives. And that is the moral and ethical level, not just of excellence and not just of proficiency, not just of the qualifications that each one has or possesses, but that degree of spirituality which makes us our free will, our independence, our liberty to make the choice only for what is good, what is moral, not what is bad and not what is evil. How sad that you have a Christian country, 90% in a way that is Christian, 85% Catholic, and yet that particular field of spirituality, that essence of our being moral creatures, not just civilized people, but moral creatures. The foundation of what is good has somehow been left in the corner, or that our consciences and our souls have been put in a cupboard and kept there while we do whatever we please without that sense of morality, of a sense of values that is so important in making ourselves truly human. As a human being composed of the body, the mind, and the spirit. How often have I gone through this? So many times that we are composed of these three basic elements and foundations to consider ourselves as human beings. We have all kinds of institutions, we have all kinds of systems, we have democracy at its fullest, we have the languages that we have all over the country, all 85 of them, we have the regions, etc., and all. We have the tribes, the indigenous, and whatever else you would call them. But let us go back to the foundation of it all, the roots from which our sense of humanity, our sense of governance, our sense of leadership, our sense of the respect and the honor that we give to the presidency, that is where it all should come from. Let us bring God back to our lives. Let us have our moral values take over all of this. We have to be ruled by rules and laws. Ano yan? Rule system, law system, etc. We need a code, we need a declaration, we need a United Nations convention on the law of the sea, etc. We need the civil code, we need the criminal code, etc. All of this, so many codes, so many laws, so many of these restrictions and liberties that we brag about, but we forget the most important, the moral value of our lives. That is the foundation of it all. So I go back, as I keep going back, to the importance of that particular office, which is now under attack in so many ways, but perhaps now is the time to give value to the office of which the identity of a people, the face of the people are actually seated. We are there with whoever sits there. And we are there with the present President Junior Marcos. I have given some kind of not a parallelism, but I have given the names of some of the leaders in the past whose lives and whose manner of governance you will be able to understand better in the manner by which our developed country is now proceeding. We have a president that believes in certain visions, in a quest for a better horizon, in the good and the benefit of the people, but is that connecting with us, with our lives, with the individual Filipino in his room, in his bedroom, in the solitude of his sitting alone, in the community where he is serving, in the barangay, wherever else that Filipino is located, the child in the classroom, the teacher, all of those in any field of endeavor, of activity, the farmer, the fisherman, lahat ng yan, all of them, all of us. That is where it is important that we can identify with each other, because the basic line that connects us all precisely is not just politics. It's not the system of governance. It's not this ideal of a democratic way of life. What connects us all precisely is the ethical and moral values of being a human being, of living a human life that acknowledges the care of the soul as much as the education of the heart, that acknowledges both the importance of our intellect and the brilliance of our minds, but at the same time, that which should surface between and among each other, and that is the honor that we give to the value of what it is to be human, to be good, to be true, to be beautiful. Beauty is truth, truth, beauty. So many quotations as far as that's concerned. Socratic, Platonic, however else that phrase came from the First Lady Imelda Romualdez Marcos. Perhaps that should be repeated also as often as we can. The true, the good, and the beautiful. the source and the essence of our lives on earth. As I've said, there is a destiny that leadership presents to us. There is a horizon that our present Junior Marcus talks about. There is a quest. There is a roadmap. But for us individually, we follow what we believe is that which is good, that is true, that is beautiful for our destiny, for ourselves. So I've gone around with so many of these phrases and notes of many of these dissertations that I've written down, just so as I could give importance to the office of the president, the Junior Marcus that sits there, whether you acknowledge his name historically or by episodes, that is the president we have. That is the face and the identity of the Filipino nation and the people as of now, as of this next 4 years. And whether you unless you renounce your citizenship, that is what we are going to live by. So respect, honor the nobility of our race, the maharlika, as they would call it, mahal na likha. That is how we should term ourselves as noble, honorable, and in the grace, in the good grace of God, by the grace of God. So thank you for having listened to me. However else this going around in the circles of life may be, that is precisely what we are trying to arrive at. A destiny that is for our people, the kind of character that we should evolve among and between ourselves, and the kind of respect and honor, acknowledgement, and enlightenment that we will have as far as the idea of a leader is concerned, the seat of power is concerned, and the presidency that is now held by a Junior Marcus. Thank you for having joined. This has been The Chronicles, and this is Rita Gadi. Thank you, Bear.